Good morning, student. So now we'll just come to the next topic of this chapter, that is our part 3, the age of revolution 1830 to 1848. Before that already we have covered our two part. So we'll start. And conservatism tried to consolidate their power. Liberalism and nationalism came to be increasingly associated with revolution in many regions of Europe, such as Italian and German states, the province of the Ottoman Empire, Ireland and Poland. So, this revolution were led by the liberal nationalists belonged to the educated middle class, among whom were professors, school teachers, clerk and member of the commercial middle class. So, in this way, the first upheaval took place in France in July 1830. The Bourbon king, who had been restored to power during the conservatives' reactions after 1815, were now overthrown by liberal revolutionaries. So, an event that mobilized nationalist feeling among the educated elite across Europe was the Greek War of Independence. It means the growth of revolutionary nationalism in Europe is part of a struggle for independence among the Greek, which began in 1821. So in this time, poets and artists noted Greeks as a cradle of European civilization and mobilized public opinion to support its struggle against a Muslim empire. And finally, the Treaty of Constantinople of 1832 recognized Greece as an independent nation. So now we'll come to the topic 3.1, the romantic imagination and national feeling. The development of nationalism does not come about only through war and territorial expansion. Culture played an important role in creating the idea of the nation. Art and poetry, stories, music, etc. So it helped express and shape nationalist feeling. Let us look. A Romanticism, it was a cultural movement which sought to develop a particular form of national sentiment. So, romantic artists and poets generally criticize the glorification of reason and science and focus instead on emotion, institution and feelings. Their effort was to create a sense of shared collective heritage, a common culture past as the basis of nation. And other romantics like German philosopher Johann Gottfried Herder, he claimed that true German culture was to be discovered among the common people. It was through folk song, folk poetry and folk dance that the true spirit of the nation. So collecting and recording this form of folk culture was essential to the project of national building. Now we'll understand the feeling of nationalism through music and language. So we'll take the example of Poland. You know that Poland, which no longer exists at an independent territory, national feeling were kept alive through music and language. And now our next topic, figure point 3.2, that is hunger, hardship and popular revolt. So the 1830 were years of great economic hardship in Europe. The first half of the 19th century was an enormous increase in population all over the Europe. Population from rural areas migrate to the cities to live in overcrowded small producers in towns were often faced with stiff competition from imports of cheap machine-made goods from England, where industrialization was more advanced than on continent. So in those regions of Europe where the aristocracy still enjoyed power, peasants struggled under the burden of feudal dues and obligations. So if we talk about the year 1848, so the year 1848 was one such year where food shortage and widespread unemployment brought the population of Paris out of the roads. It means the people, they are facing the problem of food shortage and unemployment. And now we'll talk about the Weavers' Revolt of 1845. So, in Silesia village, weaving was the most widespread occupation. It means here the misery of the workers is extreme. The desperate need for job has been taken advantage of by the contractor to reduce the price of the goods they order. So on 4 June at 2 p.m. a large crowd of weavers emerged from their homes and marched in Paris up to the mansion of their contractor demanding higher wages. They were treated with scorn and threats alternatively. So following this, a group of them forced their way into the house and window. They entered their house and they just destroy their window, panes, furniture, etc. And another group broke into the storehouse and plundered it of supplies of cloth which they tore to shreds. And the contractor fled with his family to a neighboring village, and which however refused to shelter such a person, and he returned after 24 hours with the request of the army, and in the exchange of there followed 11 weavers were shot. So now we'll come to the topic 3.3, that is the revolution of the liberals. So on 18 May 1848, 831 elected representatives marched in a festive procession to take their place in the Frankfurt Parliament, converted in the Church of St. Paul, and they drafted a constitution for a German nation to be headed by a monarchy subject to a parliament. When the deputies offered the crown on this term of Friedrich Wilhelm IV, King of Prussia, he rejected it and joined other monarchs to oppose the elected assembly. While the opposition of the aristocracy and military became stronger and the social basis of parliament eroded, the parliament was dominated by the middle class who resisted the demand of workers and artisans, and they lost their support. In the end, troops were called it and the assembly was forced to disband. Now we'll come to the next topic, that is the making of Germany and Italy. Part 4.1. Here one question is there: Germany, can the army be the architect of a nation? So after 1848, nationalist sentiment were often mobilized by conservative for promoting state power and achieving political domination over Europe. So as you see, nationalist feelings were widespread among middle class Germans, who in 1848 tried to unite the different regions of the German into a nation state governed by an elected parliament. So this liberal initiative to nation building was, however, repressed by the combined force of monarchy and the military support by the large landowners of Prussia. So from then on, Prussia took on the leadership of the movement for national unification. Its chief minister Otto von Bismarck was the architect of this process, carried out with the help of Prussian army and bureaucracy. So three war over 7 years, and this war with the Austria, Denmark and France ended in Prussian victory and completed the process of unification. And in January 1871, the Prussian king William I was proclaimed German emperor in a ceremony held at Versailles. So after that, if we talk about the unification of Italy and Germany, so first of all we'll talk about the unification of Italy united. So during the middle of the 19th century, Italy was divided into 7 states, of which only one, Sardian Pendomment, was ruled by an Italian princely house. The north was under Austrian Habsburg, the center was ruled by the Pope, and the southern region were under the domination of the Bourbon King of Spain. Even the Italian language had not acquired one common form and still had many regional and local variation. So now we'll talk about the contribution of famous personalities. So here some famous personalities involved in unification of Italy were Giuseppe Mazzini. During the 1830, Giuseppe Mazzini had sought to put together a coherent program for Unitarian Italy Republic. He formed two underground societies, first Young Italy in Marseille and second Young Europe in Bern. And he believed that God had intended nation to be the natural unity of mankind. So Italy could not continue to be the patchwork of small state and kingdom. And second, that is the Count Camillo de Cavour. So the unification of Italy of much of the diplomacy of the chief minister Cavour, who became the prime minister of Piedmont from 1850 to 1860. And third one, that is the Giuseppe Garibaldi. He was a central figure in the unification of Italy since he personally commanded the fort in many military campaigns that led eventually to the formation of unified Italy. He has been called the hero of two worlds because of his military enterprises in South America and Europe. So, after that, in this way we can understand the unification of Italy, and now will come the next thing, that is the strange case of Britain. So some scholars have argued that the model of the nation state is Great Britain. It was not the result of sudden upheaval or revolution. It was the result of a long drawn out process. You can see there. So there were no British nation prior to the 18th century. The primary identities of the people who inhabited the British Isles were ethnic ones like England, Wales, Scott or Irish. And in the same way, if we'll continue the incorporation of Scotland in United Kingdom, and same way we'll continue the incorporation of Ireland in United Kingdom. So first we'll talk about the incorporation of Scotland in United Kingdom. So the Act of Union, that is 1707 between England and Scotland, resulted in the formation of the United Kingdom of Great Britain. It means that England was able to impose its influence on Scotland, and hence the British Parliament was dominated by its English member. And if we continue the incorporation of Ireland in United Kingdom, so Ireland was treated in a similar way as was Scotland. It was a country divided into Catholic and Protestant. The English supported the Protestant of Ireland to establish their dominance over a largely Catholic country, and the revolt raised by Catholic was suppressed. So after a failed revolt led by Wolfe Tone and his United Irishmen in 1798, Ireland was forcibly incorporated into the United Kingdom of Britain in 1801, and a new British nation was formed through the propagation of dominated English country. So in this way you can see that our fourth part of this chapter is complete, and after that we'll continue our fifth part.